Welcome to Season 2 of the Benzager Institute for Sustainable Prosperity video blog series, Jobs, Money, Debt, Economic Common Sense. I'm your host, Matthew Forstater, Research Director with the Benzager Institute and Professor of Economics at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. In our first season, we reviewed some of the fundamentals for understanding jobs, money, and debt, unemployment and the Job Guarantee Policy Program, the Chartalist framework for understanding modern money, and the functional finance approach to managing government budgets and the national debt. The Season 1 finale applied these concepts in a green jobs proposal for sustainable prosperity. This season, we will continue to emphasize these core concepts through a wide range of applications. Today's topic, the tax-driven cowrie shell money of West Africa. In the Chartalist approach, modern money, sometimes called state money, is viewed as tax-driven. This refers to the idea that by imposing a tax obligation on the population and requiring that taxes be paid only in its own monopoly money, government creates a demand for that money and gives value to otherwise worthless bits of paper. In this way, government is able to establish general acceptability of its money, even though it has no intrinsic value and is not convertible into any other commodity or currency at a fixed exchange rate. In other words, the power of the government to impose a tax liability payable only in its own monopoly money is sufficient to create a demand for that currency and give it value. When, along with a small group of colleagues and students, I began working on this research over 20 years ago when I was a new PhD and an assistant professor at Gettysburg College, a few important things soon became clear. First, though we say money is a creature of the state, by which we mean government, because in the contemporary world it is almost always national governments that are the money monopolists, it can be any central political authority, such as a king, a lord in feudal society, or even a religious temple in the ancient world that serves in this role. Second, even the term tax-driven must be qualified because it may be any money debt obligation, including fees, fines, or some other type of tribute that the political authority imposes to create a demand for its own currency. These clarifications soon led us to realize that there are in fact many more examples of Chartalist money in history than was previously thought, and many more economists, historians, and policymakers who recognize the possibility of managing a monetary system in this way than was generally acknowledged. None of this means, of course, that every monetary system that ever existed was Chartalist. One of the most striking examples of a money I discovered to be tax-driven is the cowrie shell currency of pre-colonial Africa. Cowries were and are almost always presented as so-called primitive money. By this, it is generally meant that the money has more of a social or religious significance rather than a commercial one. So-called primitive money is also often said to be special purpose rather than general purpose money, by which it is meant that money only performs one or two, but not all, of the generally recognized functions of money. In addition, so-called primitive money was almost universally regarded as preceding the use of gold and other metallic currency, usually evolving out of barter and the standard presentation of the evolution of money. If cowrie shell money was tax-driven, then we need to demonstrate, first, that a central political authority imposed a debt obligation payable only in cowrie. Second, that the political authority was the money monopolist. And third, that the cowrie was general purpose money used for commercial purposes. If we can also show that cowrie shell money in many cases followed rather than preceded use of gold coin and other metallic money, the notion that cowrie shell currency was so-called primitive money will have been shown to be false, and the conditions necessary for a tax-driven money satisfied. The use of the cowrie as money in West Africa is said to have begun between 1290 and 1352, and gold and metallic coin had long been in use prior to that time in the region. According to economic anthropologist and historian Karl Polanyi, in West Africa, cowrie is an example of the launching of a currency as an instrument of taxation. Africanist historian Paul Lovejoy reports that in pre-colonial Nigeria, dependencies of such emirates as Nupe paid their levies in cowries as well, so that the taxation system effectively assured that people participated in the market economy and used the currency, a policy remarkably similar to the one which the later colonial regimes pursued in their efforts to see their own currencies accepted. Historian Robin Law confirms the thesis for other areas of West Africa for as late as the 19th century. The apparent preference to the payment of taxes in money is especially interesting. It must be assumed that the spread of the use of cowrie shells as money in West Africa depended upon state initiative. This was certainly the case with the introduction of the cowrie currency in Bornu in the 1840s. One of the factors that sustained the widespread misunderstanding of the origins and nature of the cowrie was the myth that the cowrie was freely available in virtually unlimited quantities to anyone walking along the seashore gathering them. On the contrary, the cowrie was not native to West Africa. The state guarded against its proliferation by preventing shiploads from being freely imported, and individual loose cowries were not accepted. Rather, the stringing of cowries was a monopoly of the palace. This refers to strings of specific numbers of cowrie shells and specific numbers of strings collected in a head. The compulsory monetization of sale and purchase meant that nothing was available for sale except in exchange for cowrie, and there was no barter whatsoever. It now seems likely that the cowrie was also tax-driven in other areas of the world where it served as money. Elwin reported in 1942 that in parts of India, there are still many of the older generation who remember the days when the cowrie was used as currency and was accepted in the payment of taxes. To sum up, West African states had a monopoly on issuing cowrie currency. Kings imposed a tax payable only in their own cowrie money. Cowrie currency was general purpose money used for commerce, and cowrie money followed the use of metallic money in history, including gold coin. In other words, the evidence is clear and abundant. Cowrie shell money of West Africa and elsewhere was state money, it was modern money, and it was tax-driven money. As money monopolist and issuer of the intrinsically worthless currency, the state does not need the public's money in order to spend. What the state needs is for the public to accept its otherwise worthless bits of paper. To accomplish this, the government imposes a tax liability and requires that taxes be paid only with its own inconvertible monopoly money. Government spending is therefore not revenue constrained. This is as true today in a modern money system, such as in the United States and Japan, as it was in the West African kingdoms long ago. Thanks for watching Jobs, Money, Debt, Economic Common Sense. Please share this with your friends so we can spread the word that we can create sustainable prosperity for the 21st century. For the Benzager Institute, I'm Matthew Forstater.